The river rests in a wide, patient curve, long before the day has fully remembered itself, and the water moves with such quiet assurance that it barely seems to move at all. The surface carries a soft gray-blue sheen, neither dark nor bright, reflecting a sky that has not yet decided on its color. A thin mist hovers just above the waterline, drifting slowly, almost lazily, as if it has nowhere else to be. Along the banks, tall reeds stand close together, their slender bodies bending slightly toward the river, listening. The air is cool and faintly damp, settling gently on exposed skin, carrying with it the mild, earthy scent of wet soil and river plants. There is no urgency here, no sharp sound to interrupt the stillness. The river breathes in long, unhurried rhythms, each gentle lap against the shore arriving with the same soft confidence as the one before it. As the minutes pass, the light changes so gradually it is almost imperceptible. The sky, once a uniform wash of pale darkness, begins to separate into layers, subtle bands of tones stretching from the horizon upward. Near the edge of the land, a muted warmth appears, a whisper of color that feels more like a memory than a sunrise. The water accepts this change without comment, holding the faint glow in its ripples, breaking it into small, wavering reflections. Somewhere in the distance, a bird stirs, not yet ready to fly, offering only a low, drowsy sound that fades back into silence. The reeds respond with the slightest rustle as a breeze passes through them, a slow exhale that travels from one stalk to the next, creating a soft, continuous murmur. The riverbank is firm beneath the thin layer of sand and silt, cool to the touch, textured with small ridges left behind by the water's previous movements. Tiny stones rest where they have always rested, smoothed by countless seasons of gentle contact. Nothing here needs to be moved or adjusted. Everything has found its place through time and repetition. The scent of the river deepens as the air warms just enough to release it, a clean, mineral smell mixed with green notes from the papyrus growing nearby. Their tall stalks rise straight and calm, capped with feathery tops that catch what little light there is, each strand outlined faintly against the sky. The soundscape remains spare and comforting. Water touches water. Reed brushes reed. A distant splash suggests a fish turning beneath the surface, but even that sound seems careful not to linger. The world feels held together by quiet agreements, each element moving only as much as necessary. The river's edge traces a slow, familiar line, unchanged from yesterday, unchanged from countless mornings before. There is a sense of continuity here, of days beginning in exactly this way, again and again without fanfare. Time does not hurry, it simply unfolds. As the horizon lightens further, shadows soften and stretch, dissolving into one another. The mist thins in places, drifting upward and away, leaving behind clear patches of water that mirror the sky more precisely. The coolness of the air begins to ease, though it remains gentle, never abrupt. Breathing feels deeper here, slower, as if the body naturally adjusts to match the pace of the river. Inhaling brings in damp freshness. Exhaling releases warmth that blends easily with the morning air. There is comfort in this exchange, a steady rhythm that requires no attention. The papyrus stands silently witness to it all, rooted firmly yet flexible, accustomed to both stillness and movement. Their surfaces are smooth and faintly waxy, catching moisture from the air. droplets gather and cling, then slowly slide downward, leaving darker trails that fade as they go. Each stalk sways just enough to acknowledge the breeze, never bending too far, always returning to upright rest. The repetition of this movement, slight lean and return, creates a visual lullaby, something the eyes can follow without effort. Beyond the immediate bank, the land rises gently, dotted with low plants and patches of earth still holding onto the night's coolness. Footprints from the previous day have softened, edges blurred by moisture, becoming part of the ground again. Nothing announces the coming work yet. This moment exists entirely on its own, a pause between darkness and activity. The river accepts this pause fully, carrying it forward without resistance. The first hint of warmth from the sun touches the tops of the reeds, not yet reaching the water below. Light filters through their thin leaves, creating faint patterns that shift slowly as the breeze moves. These patterns appear and disappear, never sharp, never demanding attention. The water below responds with subtle changes in tone, the gray-blue deepening here, lightening there, depending on the angle of reflection. Watching it requires no focus, only presence. Sounds remain sparse and reassuring. Somewhere far off, another bird answers the first, their calls separated by long stretches of quiet. Insects are still mostly at rest, offering only the occasional whisper of movement. The dominant sound is still the river itself, endlessly patient, endlessly familiar. It slides past the shore with a soft, continuous hush, like breath moving through relaxed lungs. The air near the water feels heavier, carrying moisture that cools the skin. A hand brushed against a reed would feel the faint chill of night still clinging to it. The sand near the edge darkens where water has recently touched it, creating a gentle gradient from wet to dry. This boundary shifts subtly as the river moves, advancing and retreating by small degrees, never settling completely. The motion is repetitive, predictable, soothing. Time stretches here, not in a dramatic way, but in the way a calm morning always seems to offer more space than expected. Seconds blend into one another. There is no need to count them. The sky continues its gradual transformation, the pale colors warming just enough to suggest the sun's presence without revealing it fully. Everything remains quiet, as if the world is careful not to wake itself too quickly. The papyrus leaves brush together softly as the breeze shifts direction, producing a faint, dry whisper that rises and falls. It is a sound that has repeated itself countless times, across countless mornings, unchanged in its simplicity. The river listens, the land listens, and the sound dissolves back into the broader stillness. There is comfort in knowing that nothing new is required of this moment. As the light grows incrementally brighter, details become clearer without becoming sharp. The textures of bark, leaf, and stone reveal themselves slowly, as if allowing the eye's time to adjust. The water's surface shows gentle ripples that travel outward and disappear, replaced by others, each one following the same unhurried path. Watching them is effortless. They do not surprise. They simply arrive and fade. The cool air moves across the skin in soft currents, never gusting, never stopping completely. It carries with it the layered sense of river life, water, plant, earth, blending into something familiar and grounding. Breathing remains slow and steady, matching the environment without conscious effort. There is no separation between observer and scene here, only quiet coexistence. The horizon now holds a muted glow, a promise rather than an announcement. The sun remains unseen, and that feels appropriate. This is still the river's time, the time of waiting, of gentle preparation. The reeds continue their subtle swaying. The water continues its soft conversation with the shore. Everything is exactly where it should be. The world feels suspended, not frozen, but held lightly, like a deep breath taken and not yet released. There is no need to move forward yet. The river does not rush toward the sea any faster because of the coming day. It flows as it always has, steady and calm. The morning accepts this pace, settling into it with ease. As the final traces of mist lift away, the water appears clearer, its surface reflecting the pale sky with quiet accuracy. The colors remain subdued, soothing, never demanding attention. The sounds remain few and gentle. The riverbank rests, ready but unhurried, holding the promise of work that will come later, after this moment has fully passed. For now, there is only the river before the day begins, breathing slowly, moving softly, offering its calm to anyone who stands nearby long enough to feel it seep in, settling the mind, loosening the body, and allowing the quiet to stretch on, unbroken, just a little while longer. The first light has begun to settle more confidently over the river, not bright, not sharp, but steady enough to reveal the gentle truths of the morning. The bank that was once mostly shadow now shows its quiet textures in softened detail. The sand patterned with fine ripples and the darker silt near the waterline holding a faint sheen of moisture. A few steps closer to the reeds, the air changes in a subtle way, becoming cooler and greener, as if the plants themselves have a calm presence that spreads outward. The papyrus stands in clustered families, tall and upright, their stalks rising from shallow water where the river has left a broad, calm margin. From a distance, they look like a soft forest of slender columns, all similar, all slightly different, each one quietly accepting the breeze. Up close, the stalks reveal their smooth surface, firm yet faintly yielding beneath the fingers, a living plant that holds its shape without being rigid. The tops, feathery and delicate, gather the early light and turn it into pale gold, while the lower sections remain cool and shaded, still holding a little of the night's dampness. The river is near enough to be heard without effort, a continuous hush that makes every other sound feel smaller and gentler, as if the world has agreed to speak quietly in this place. Moving toward the papyrus is not a hurried walk, but a slow approach, the kind that naturally matches the mood of the morning. The feet find the firmer ground first, then the edge where sand meets shallow water, and the sensation changes with each step. Dry sand is soft and slightly resistant, shifting under weight with a faint, granular whisper. The damp sand closer to the reeds is cooler, more compact, and it holds the shape of a footprint for a moment before the water smooths it away. When the first step enters the shallows, the water wraps around the ankles with a gentle chill, not unpleasant, simply present, a reminder that the river has been awake longer than the day. The water here is calm and shallow, moving slowly around the bases of the papyrus and around small stones that sit half-buried in silt. Each step through it creates a soft swirl, a faint clouding of the water as fine sediment lifts and drifts, then settles again. It is a slow disturbance that quickly returns to stillness, and the river seems to accept it without judgment. The papyrus stalks are close enough now to touch, and the hand reaches out in an unhurried way, not grabbing, not pulling, but resting fingertips on the smooth green surface first, feeling the coolness, the slight firmness, the subtle sheen that suggests moisture and life. The plant is strong, and it does not flinch. It simply remains where it is, swaying only slightly when the breeze moves through. Choosing a stalk is a quiet decision, more about feel and shape than about urgency. The eyes follow the lines upward, noticing which stalks are straight and well-formed, which are thick enough to work with, which have the right steadiness when touched. The movement is repetitive, calm, and gentle. Look, reach, touch, feel, release. Each stalk is like the next, and yet each one offers a slightly different texture, a slightly different thickness, a slightly different response under the fingers. Some stalks are cool and slick with morning moisture. Others are drier where the breeze has brushed them longer. Some stand closer together, rubbing softly as they sway, creating that faint whispering sound of plant against plant, while others have a small space around them, standing alone with quiet dignity. The hand slides along the stalk, down toward its base, where it thickens and meets the water. Near the bottom, the plant feels more solid, more rooted, and the scent is stronger there, an earthy green smell mixed with the dampness of river mud. It is the scent of growth, of water, of patient time. The small tools used for cutting are simple, familiar, and they rest in the hand without needing attention. The metal or sharpened edge feels cool at first, then warms slightly from contact, and it has a reassuring weight, not heavy, just steady, as if it belongs to the slow ritual of gathering. The first cut is made with care, not with force. The blade meets the stalk at a low point, close to the base, where the plant is thick and full. There is a subtle resistance, then a soft give as the fibers separate. The sound is gentle and contained, a quiet slice that is more felt than heard. The stalk, once freed, is held for a moment in the hand, its length rising above the head, its feathery top brushing the air. It is surprisingly light for its size, balanced in the grip, smooth and cool. Water clings to the lower portion, and droplets slide down the surface, dripping back into the shallows with tiny, almost invisible splashes. The hand adjusts its hold, sliding upward slightly, gathering the stalk into a comfortable position. Then the movement repeats, unhurried and consistent. Another stalk is selected. Another touch, another slow check of thickness and straightness, another careful cut. The work becomes a quiet rhythm. Select, touch, cut, lift, hold. It is not a process of taking, but of gathering, as if the reeds have been waiting calmly to be chosen, and the hands have been waiting calmly to choose them. With each cut, the bundle begins to form, stalks align together, their smooth sides pressing against one another, their tops fanning out like soft brushes catching the morning light. The sound of the bundle shifting is a gentle rustle, dry near the tops, damp near the base, and it blends seamlessly into the river's hush. The shallow water continues to offer small sensations with every movement. When the legs shift, water moves around them, cool and smooth, and sometimes the toes find a softer patch of silt that gives slightly, then steadies again. The sunlight is still mild, and it falls through the feathery papyrus tops in thin strands, creating pale patterns on the surface of the water. These patterns drift and change slowly as the plants sway, never sharp, never insistent, like a moving tapestry of light and shadow. The air carries the faint sweetness of growing plants and the clean mineral smell of river water. Occasionally, a distant bird calls, but it is not a loud sound, more like a sleepy acknowledgement that morning is here. Nearby, the reeds respond to the breeze with their constant soft whisper, a sound that feels continuous, like the background of a dream. Hands continue their slow work. The stalk is held, felt, evaluated. Cut is made. The stalk is added to the bundle. The bundle grows gradually, not suddenly. Each new addition shifts the weight in the arms by a small amount, and the body adjusts without thought, shoulders relaxing, elbows settling into a comfortable angle. The repetitive motion is soothing, as if the body knows this work and can do it without tension. As the bundle becomes larger, its presence becomes more noticeable. The smooth stalks press together, and the hand can feel their cool surfaces against the palm, the faint slickness where moisture remains. The tops, feathery and light, brush against the forearm or shoulder when the bundle is held close, and their texture is delicate, like fine straw softened by air. The scent of papyrus becomes stronger as more stalks are gathered, a fresh green smell with an earthy undertone that seems to deepen with each breath. Every now and then, the bundle is adjusted, not with haste, but with a slow, careful movement, aligning the stalks so their bases sit evenly, making the bundle easier to carry. The adjustment itself is calming. A gentle shake, a soft press, a slow smoothing of the stalks into place. The river water continues to lap quietly, occasionally touching the edges of the bundle's lower ends and leaving a darker sheen where it passes. Droplets fall from the cut bases in slow intervals, like a quiet metronome marking time. When the bundle is rested briefly against the hip or held with both hands, the body feels the simple satisfaction of steady work, a mild warmth in the muscles, a sense of balance. Selecting more stalks becomes a kind of meditation. The eyes move across the reeds, finding the next one to gather, and the mind stays gently anchored in the small details. The color variations from pale green to deeper emerald. The way morning light makes some stalks appear almost translucent near the edges. The faint lines and natural markings that run along the surface. Each stalk has a slightly different thickness, a slightly different firmness. Some are newer, slimmer, and more flexible, bending more easily when touched. Others are older and thicker, standing more upright, their fibers more developed. The hands choose with calm consistency, not taking too many from one tight cluster, moving to a nearby patch, wading slowly through the shallows. The water shifts with each step, making soft sounds as it moves around the legs, and occasionally the motion stirs a small floating leaf or a piece of reed that drifts quietly away, then settles again. The ground beneath the water changes subtly, sometimes sandy, sometimes silty, sometimes dotted with tiny stones that press gently against the sole. Each sensation is small and manageable, easy to accept, easy to let pass. The blade continues to do its simple work. It meets the stalk, presses, and glides through. The resistance is consistent, a gentle firmness that yields in a predictable way. The sound remains soft, never harsh, and it is quickly absorbed by the surrounding calm. The cut stalk is lifted and added to the bundle, and the bundle's weight increases by degrees so small they almost feel like imagination. The arms hold it steady, and the shoulders stay relaxed. There is no strain. The morning itself seems designed for work like this, work that is measured, work that can be repeated without hurry, work that allows the mind to remain quiet. The breeze continues to pass through the reed tops, creating that faint, continuous rustle, and occasionally it carries a thin coolness across the skin, making the dampness on the legs feel fresh. The sun climbs slowly, and though its warmth is still gentle, it begins to soften the chill of the water at the edges, making the air feel slightly less cold with each passing minute. At times, the hands pause not because they must, but because pausing is part of the rhythm. The bundle is held still. The eyes rest on the river beyond the reeds, watching the slow, patient movement of water. The surface reflects the growing brightness of the sky, a pale field of light broken by small ripples that travel outward and fade. The pause allows the senses to settle into the environment again, to notice the layering of quiet sounds, the subtle smell of wet earth and fresh plant fibers, the gentle touch of air on the cheeks. Then the hands resume, selecting another stalk, feeling its smoothness, cutting it cleanly, adding it to the bundle. The repetition is comforting, like a familiar routine repeated morning after morning. It is easy to imagine that this work has been done in exactly this way for a very long time. Hands moving through reeds in the early light, gathering papyrus for later steps. All of it steady and ordinary, all of it calmly purposeful. As the bundle grows to a satisfying size, it becomes something the arms cradle naturally, as if it has always been there. The stalks align neatly, and the tops fan outward, soft and airy. The bundle rustles gently when shifted, and the sound is warm and dry at the top, damp and quiet at the base. The hands smooth the stalks once more, pressing them together lightly so they feel secure. The water still clings to the lower ends, making them darker and slightly heavier. A few drops slide down and fall, creating tiny rings on the water surface that expand and disappear. The rings are small, perfect circles that last only a moment, but they repeat again and again with each slow drip, like the river itself is drawing soft patterns in response to the gathering. The work begins to feel complete in a gradual way, not as a sudden finish. There is no final dramatic stalk, no sharp turning point. Instead, there is a quiet sense that enough has been gathered for now. The hands stop reaching as often. The bundle is held and felt, its weight gently reassuring. The body stands in the shallows, legs cooled by water, arms warmed by steady holding. The air smells clean and green, and the sun, still not harsh, brightens the tops of the reeds until they glow softly, like pale brushes dipped in gold. The river continues its calm hush, and in that sound there is the promise of the next steps, the carrying, the washing, the peeling, the slow craft that will follow. But for this moment, the gathering itself is enough. The simple act of selecting and cutting and bundling, done slowly, done carefully, done with attention to the comforting details. Smooth stalks beneath the fingers, cool water around the ankles, soft reed whispers in the breeze, and the quiet morning light settling gently over everything. The bundle of papyrus rests in the arms with a quiet solidity, the way a simple object can feel both light and meaningful when it has been gathered slowly and with care. The stalks are aligned in a long, tidy group, their cut ends slightly darker from river water, their smooth green surfaces cool against the hands. The feathery tops fan outward and upward, catching the early light and turning it into a muted shimmer, pale and soft, as if the morning sun is already being filtered through countless delicate threads. For a moment, standing at the edge of the reeds, there is no need to move. The body adjusts to the weight, finding a comfortable balance, elbows settling, fingers curling around the stalks with a gentle firmness. Water still clings to the bases and small droplets gather, then slide down in slow intervals, falling back into the shallows with tiny sounds that are quickly absorbed by the larger hush of the river. The air feels cooler near the water, slightly damp, and when the bundle is lifted a little higher, the scent of the papyrus becomes clearer, fresh and green, with a subtle earthiness underneath, like clean plant fibers warmed only slightly by the rising day. The first steps away from the reeds are unhurried. The feet move through shallow water, and the sensation is smooth and cool around the ankles. Each step makes a soft swirl, lifting fine silt that drifts like a faint cloud before settling again. The bundle shifts slightly with the movement, and the stalks make a quiet rustling sound, gentle and dry near the tops, damp and muted near the ends. The papyrus plants left behind continue their slow swaying, whispering softly as the breeze passes through them, and their sound fades gradually as distance grows. The river remains nearby, its surface catching more light now, but still calm, still steady, still speaking in low, continuous tones. As the feet reach the boundary where water meets damp sand, the texture changes again. The sand is cool and firm, yielding just enough to show a footprint before the next small wave smooths the edges. Tiny grains cling briefly to wet skin, then fall away with the next step, leaving behind a faint, clean feeling, as if the river is quietly tidying up after the work. Moving onto drier ground, the air feels a touch warmer, less heavy with moisture. The sun has risen enough to brighten the landscape without making it sharp. Light spreads across the sand and the low plants near the bank, revealing muted colors, soft browns and pale greens, all washed in the gentle gold of early morning. The bundle of papyrus casts a long, faint shadow that stretches behind, thin lines from each stalk merging into one soft shape on the ground. The body walks at a steady pace, not fast, not slow, simply consistent, a pace that allows breathing to remain calm and even. Inhaling brings the scent of river and reeds, still present but less intense now, and mixed with it is the dry warmth of sand and dust, the familiar smell of land beginning to wake. The bundle rests against the forearm and chest, and from time to time the hands adjust their grip slightly, sliding along the smooth stalks to keep them aligned. The surface of the stalks feels almost polished, cool in the shaded areas, slightly warmer where the sun touches them. The feathery tops brush softly against the shoulder with each step, their texture light and airy, like dry grasses that have been softened by careful handling. The path away from the river is not sharply defined, but it is known through repetition. The ground near the bank is uneven in small ways, shaped by water and foot traffic, with subtle rises and dips. Small stones sit embedded in the sand, rounded and smooth, and when a foot presses against one, it is a gentle reminder to step carefully, to keep the pace slow. The sound of walking is quiet, mostly the soft scuff of sand underfoot and the faint rustle of the bundle. In the distance, the quiet of morning is layered with subtle life. A bird calls once, then is silent. Somewhere beyond the bank, another sound answers, separated by long stretches of calm. The air carries these sounds lightly, never letting them become loud, and the space between them feels comfortable, as if silence is the natural resting place and sound is only a brief visitor. As the path continues, the river begins to drift further behind, though its presence remains in the background like a steady breath. The land opens into a broader view of fields and low growth, patches of cultivated earth, and small clusters of plants that thrive near the water's reach. The sun now rests just above the horizon, and its light is still soft enough to make everything appear gentle at the edges. Shadows remain long, stretching from reeds and stones and low shrubs, and they move slowly, almost imperceptibly, as the minutes pass. The bundle in the arms seems to gather light along its length, each smooth stalk reflecting a faint line of brightness, while the spaces between stalks hold thin stripes of shadow. The eyes can follow these patterns without effort, and the repetition of lines, light and dark, becomes quietly soothing. The body continues forward, step after step, the work transitioning from cutting and gathering to carrying, and the change in activity feels natural, as if the morning is guiding each movement gently toward the next. The weight of the bundle is steady, never surprising. It presses lightly into the forearm, and the hands maintain a relaxed grip, fingers curved but not tense. Occasionally, a slight shift in the bundle's balance encourages a small adjustment, a subtle lift or repositioning so the stalks remain aligned. The movement is slow, almost ceremonial, like smoothing a blanket or arranging something carefully on a shelf. The papyrus tops sway lightly with each step, making a faint brushing sound, and their feathery strands catch small currents of air, fluttering without urgency. The smell of the papyrus remains close, a clean green scent that feels refreshing rather than sharp. It mixes with the warmth of the sun on the skin, the growing comfort of the day as the earlier chill fades. The morning air is still cool enough to feel pleasant in the lungs, and each breath seems to deepen naturally, matching the calm pace of walking. The path passes by patches of earth that hold the night's moisture, darker and cooler than the surrounding sand. In these places, the scent changes slightly, becoming richer, more earthy, with a faint mineral note. The feet step carefully, and the ground gives a little more underfoot, then becomes firm again. Small insects begin to stir as the light strengthens, and their presence is felt more than heard, an occasional soft buzz drifting past and then disappearing. The world remains mostly quiet, held in a gentle stillness that feels protective. Nothing demands attention. Everything simply exists, layered and calm. The sound of the bundle stalks shifting softly becomes a familiar accompaniment, like a quiet instrument playing the same note again and again. As the river recedes further, the atmosphere becomes more settled into the rhythm of land. The breeze feels drier now, though still mild. It moves across the skin like a soft brush, lifting the edges of clothing slightly, then passing on. The sun warms the shoulders and the back in a gradual way, never sudden. The light creates a pleasant contrast between shaded areas and warm patches, and the body can feel these changes as it walks, stepping through sunlight, then into shade cast by a small cluster of trees or taller plants. Each shift in temperature is subtle, almost like the difference between one breath and the next. The bundle remains steady against the body, and the papyrus stalks, though gathered and cut, still feel alive in their texture, holding moisture in their fibers, cool at the base, warmer near the tops. In the distance, A small settlement begins to appear, not as a dramatic reveal, but as a gradual presence, shapes becoming clearer over time. Low structures made from mud brick or packed earth sit quietly in the morning light, their surfaces textured and matte, absorbing sunlight rather than reflecting it. Smoke may rise faintly from somewhere, thin and pale, blending with the sky, carrying a gentle scent of fire that has been lit softly, perhaps for the first cooking of the day. The smell is not strong, just a faint warmth in the air, and it adds another layer to the morning's sensory tapestry. As the steps continue, the sounds of the river become more distant, replaced slowly by the softer sounds of land, the occasional rustle of dry plants, the faint murmur of life beginning to move, not hurried, not loud. The approach toward home or workspace is gradual, and there is no sense of rushing to arrive. The journey itself feels like part of the craft, a necessary, gentle bridge between the river and the later work of preparing papyrus sheets. The bundle is carried with care, not thrown over a shoulder carelessly, not allowed to drag. The hands protect it, keeping the stalk straight and aligned. The simple act of carrying becomes meditative, the mind naturally focusing on the steady rhythm of steps, the feeling of weight balanced in the arms, the way the stalks press lightly against one another. The sounds remain soft, the environment offering quiet reassurance with each moment. The sun continues its slow rise, and the light becomes slightly warmer, slightly brighter, but still far from harsh. It is the kind of light that makes textures pleasing. The fine grains of sand, the roughness of packed earth, the smoothness of papyrus stalks, the soft fuzz of their feathery tops. As the path nears more settled ground, the surface underfoot becomes firmer, packed by repeated walking. The sound of steps changes from soft scuffing to a slightly more solid, muted thud, still gentle, still quiet. The bundle rustles in response, and the stalks make a faint tapping sound when they touch each other, a delicate, hollow note that repeats with each shift. The body continues to breathe slowly, the chest rising and falling in a calm rhythm. The air now carries a blend of scents: earth, plant, faint smoke, perhaps the distant hint of baked clay warming in the sun. These smells are comforting, familiar, and they settle into the senses without demanding thought. The settlement remains quiet in the morning. Movement is minimal, small, and unhurried. A distant figure might pass slowly, footsteps soft on packed earth. A door might open with a gentle creak, then close again. The sounds are not sudden, not startling, just part of the gradual waking of the day. The bundle of papyrus, carried steadily, feels like an offering to the day's work, a reminder that craft begins long before the first tool touches the surface. It begins with gathering, with carrying, with patience. The hands hold the stalks firmly enough to keep them secure, but gently enough to respect their smooth surfaces. The cut ends, still slightly damp, leave faint traces of moisture where they touch the forearm, a coolness that contrasts pleasantly with the warmth of the sun. The feathery tops brush lightly against the cheek once, then drift away, their touch so light it barely registers, like a soft breath. Eventually, the path leads to a place of rest for the bundle, a shaded area where the papyrus can be set down before the next step begins. The movement slows even further as the body approaches, as if the end of carrying deserves its own calm ritual. The hands shift their grip once more, preparing to lower the bundle without jarring it. The muscles in the arms feel a gentle warmth from holding and walking, not strain, just the mild evidence of steady effort. The bundle is lowered slowly, stalks meeting the ground or a flat surface with a soft, whispering sound. The feathery tops settle last, fanning out and then becoming still. For a moment, there is a quiet satisfaction in seeing the bundle at rest, neatly aligned, ready for washing and peeling later. The river is now farther away, but its calm seems to have been carried along with the papyrus, lingering in the way everything remains slow and quiet. After setting the bundle down, the hands remain close for a moment, smoothing the stalks lightly, ensuring they remain straight, removing any small bits of sand or debris that might have clung to them. The touch is gentle and repetitive, like brushing dust from a table. The papyrus stalks feel cool and smooth under the fingers, their surfaces still holding some of the river's moisture. The air in this place feels slightly warmer now, protected from the river's chill, but still fresh. The light has grown brighter, though it continues to feel soft and calm. The day has begun, but it has begun slowly, in measured steps, and the work has moved forward without stress or urgency. The carrying is complete, and the papyrus rests, quietly waiting for the next slow process, while the body and breath settle into stillness again, ready to continue with the same gentle patience. The water used for washing sits calmly in a wide, shallow basin near the workspace, its surface smooth and unbroken, reflecting the brightening sky in muted tones. It has been drawn from the river not long ago, and it still carries that familiar coolness, the quiet memory of flowing currents now resting in stillness. The bundle of papyrus lies nearby, neatly aligned, its stalks resting together after the slow journey from the riverbank. The feathery tops have settled into a soft fan, no longer moving, while the cut ends show darker patches where moisture remains. The air here feels settled and gentle, warmer than by the river, but still cool enough to feel refreshing. Light reaches this place indirectly, filtered through open space and low structures, so it arrives softened, without glare. It touches the papyrus with care, highlighting faint variations in green along each stalk, the natural lines and subtle marks that tell of growth in water and sun. Before any washing begins, there is a pause, a quiet moment where hands hover and breath slows, acknowledging the simple transition from carrying to cleaning. The first stalk is lifted from the bundle slowly, almost ceremonially, fingers sliding along its length to find a comfortable hold. It feels lighter now than it did when freshly cut, though it still holds a pleasant weight, balanced and familiar. The surface is cool and smooth, with a faint slickness where moisture lingers, and the scent of green plant fibers rises gently as it is moved. Lowering it into the basin, the stalk meets the water with hardly a sound. The surface ripples outward in small, even rings that touch the sides of the basin and return softly. The water accepts the papyrus without resistance, flowing around it, darkening its surface slightly as it becomes fully wet. Hands follow, submerging slowly, and the coolness spreads across the skin, a calm contrast to the warming air. Fingers move along the stalk in steady strokes, brushing away bits of sand, fine silt, and tiny fragments of river life that cling near the base. The motion is gentle and repetitive, sliding down, lifting slightly, then sliding again, always unhurried, always consistent. As the stalk is rinsed, the water begins to change in subtle ways. It remains clear, but faint clouds appear briefly where fingers disturb small particles, then drift and settle again. The sound of water moving is soft and contained, a quiet slosh that never rises above a whisper. Droplets cling to the hands and wrists, catching the light before falling back into the basin. The papyrus surface becomes more uniformly dark as it absorbs water, and its texture feels slightly different now, less slick, more matte, as the outer layer is fully wetted. Turning the stalk slowly allows the water to reach every side, and the hands follow the curve naturally, thumbs smoothing one side while fingers support the other. The feathery top is dipped as well, just briefly, enough to rinse away any dust or insects that may have settled there. When lifted, water streams down in thin lines, dripping steadily from the ends and returning to the basin with soft, rhythmic taps. The clean stalk is set aside carefully, placed with others that have already been washed. They rest parallel to one another, surfaces glistening faintly, aligned with quiet precision. Each stalk added makes a subtle sound as it touches the others, a gentle tap followed by stillness. The repetition begins to establish itself. Lift a stalk, lower it into water, slide hands along its length, rinse, turn, lift, and set aside. The body settles into this rhythm quickly, movements becoming smooth and economical without losing their gentleness. There is no rush to finish. The work stretches naturally, allowing attention to remain on each small sensation. The water stays cool, refreshing the hands each time they enter. The light continues to shift slowly, growing brighter but remaining soft, and the air holds a pleasant balance between warmth and coolness. With each new stalk washed, the basin receives more traces of the river. Tiny bits of sand collect at the bottom, barely visible, while faint greenish hues appear in the water, subtle and diluted, the natural color of the plant releasing just a little. The scent near the basin becomes richer, a blend of clean water and fresh papyrus, grounding and calm. Hands move steadily, fingers learning the exact pressure needed to clean without scraping, to guide water along the surface without bending the stalk. Occasionally, a small irregularity is felt, a natural ridge or node in the papyrus, and the fingers pause briefly there, exploring the texture before continuing. These pauses feel natural, part of the slow inspection that washing provides. Each stalk is given the same attention, the same time, as if they all deserve equal care. The sounds of the surroundings remain quiet and supportive. Somewhere nearby, a faint murmur of activity suggests others beginning their day, but it is distant and subdued. The dominant sounds remain close and intimate, water moving around hands, droplets falling, stalks touching. These sounds repeat gently, creating a steady auditory pattern that blends easily into the background. Breathing remains slow and deep, shoulders relaxed, posture comfortable. The washing does not strain any part of the body. It encourages stillness, encouraging the mind to remain anchored in the present moment. The hands feel capable and calm, guided more by habit than by thought, and the mind follows along, untroubled. As more stalks are cleaned, the pile of washed papyrus grows gradually, while the unwashed bundle shrinks. The contrast between them is subtle but noticeable. The washed stalks appear slightly darker, more evenly colored, their surfaces free of debris. The unwashed ones still hold faint traces of river sand and lighter patches where they dried during carrying. This visual progression offers a quiet sense of movement through the task, not dramatic, but gently reassuring. The water in the basin remains usable, refreshed occasionally by adding a little more from a nearby container, the new water blending seamlessly with the old. The temperature stays cool, and the hands welcome it each time, the sensation grounding and soothing. Sometimes, both hands work together along a stalk, starting from opposite ends and meeting in the middle, fingers sliding toward one another in mirrored motions. Other times, one hand supports while the other cleans, alternating roles without conscious decision. The stalks are turned slowly, rolled between the palms, ensuring that every side meets the water. The feathery tops, once rinsed, are shaken gently to release excess water, and the droplets scatter lightly, landing with soft taps that fade quickly. When placed aside, the tops settle into loose arrangements, overlapping softly, creating a textured surface of fine strands that catch the light in subtle ways. The basin itself becomes a focal point of calm. Its edges are smooth and familiar, worn by use, and they hold the water securely. The surface reflects the movement of hands and stalks, breaking into small ripples that smooth out again and again. Watching these ripples requires no effort, and the eyes naturally rest on them between motions, following their slow expansion and disappearance. Time stretches comfortably here. There is no clear sense of how long the washing has been going on, only that it continues at a steady, unbroken pace. The sun rises higher, but its warmth is still gentle, reaching the workspace indirectly, ensuring that the water stays cool and the air stays pleasant. Occasionally, the hands pause to rest briefly at the basin's edge, water dripping slowly from the fingers back into the basin. The skin feels clean and cool, refreshed by repeated contact with water. The papyrus scent lingers on the hands, a mild green fragrance that feels natural and soothing. These pauses are short and unremarkable, just enough to shift position or take a deeper breath. Then the work resumes. Another stalk is lifted. Another rinse begins. The sequence repeats without variation, and that repetition is the heart of its comfort. The act of washing removes not only visible debris but also the memory of the river's movement, preparing the papyrus for the quieter, more controlled steps to come. Each stalk becomes a little more uniform, a little more ready. The washing feels like a conversation between water and plant, guided by human hands, all of it gentle and cooperative. There is no force, no urgency, only steady motion and patient attention. The basin water continues to whisper softly with each movement, and the surrounding air holds that sound close, letting it remain intimate. As the final stalks from the original bundle are washed, the unwashed pile dwindles to just a few. These last stalks receive the same care as the first, no quicker, no slower. The hands do not change their pace. Each stalk is given its time in the water, each surface smoothed, each top rinsed. When the last one is placed with the others, the basin holds only water and faint traces of sand at the bottom. The washed papyrus rests nearby in an orderly arrangement, surfaces still glistening, droplets forming and falling in slow intervals. The sight is quietly satisfying, not in a dramatic way, but in the way that orderly completion always is. After the washing is complete, the hands remain in the basin for a moment longer, fingers moving idly through the water, feeling its coolness without purpose. The water responds with small ripples, then becomes still again. When the hands are lifted, droplets fall slowly, leaving faint trails on the skin before disappearing. The air feels slightly warmer now, and the contrast with the cool water is pleasant. The papyrus rests clean and calm, its river-borne impurities gently removed, ready for the next slow transformation. The workspace remains quiet, held in the same soft light, and the day continues to unfold without hurry, the washing complete, the calm unbroken, the rhythm intact. The washed papyrus rests quietly now, its surfaces clean and evenly darkened by water, lying in neat alignment where the light can reach them without glare. The basin has been set aside, and the workspace feels settled, ready for the next slow movement. The air is calm, carrying the faint green scent of damp plant fibers mixed with the dry warmth of earth beginning to heat under the rising sun. Hands hover briefly over the papyrus, not yet touching, as if acknowledging the change in task. Then fingers close gently around a single stalk, lifting it from the group with an easy, practiced motion. The stalk feels slightly heavier now that it is fully washed, holding water within its fibers. Its surface is smooth but no longer slick, cool to the touch, and faint lines run lengthwise along it, subtle guides shaped by growth. Holding it horizontally, the hands find a comfortable position, thumbs resting near the top, fingers supporting underneath. There is no rush to begin. The stalk is simply held for a moment, felt, balanced, allowed to be present. The outer layer of the papyrus is thin but resilient, a green skin that protected the plant while it grew along the river. It has a slightly different texture than the inner pith, smoother and a bit tougher, and the fingers can sense where one ends and the other begins. A small incision is made near the top, shallow and careful, just enough to catch the edge of the outer layer. The sound is minimal, a faint scrape, quickly absorbed by the quiet around the workspace. Fingertips move to that edge and pinch lightly, lifting it just enough to separate it from what lies beneath. There is a subtle resistance at first, then a gentle release as the layer begins to peel away. The motion is slow and steady, guided by feel rather than force. As the outer skin lifts, it curls slightly, forming a thin ribbon that moves away from the stalk in a smooth arc. The color beneath is paler, almost creamy, and it appears matte compared to the faint sheen of the outer layer. The contrast is calm and pleasing, like revealing a softer tone hidden beneath a brighter surface. The peeling continues in one long, uninterrupted movement. Fingers slide along the stalk, maintaining light, even pressure. The outer layer separates with a soft, fibrous whisper, a sound so gentle it feels more imagined than heard. The hands adjust their grip occasionally, rotating the stalk a little to keep the peel smooth and continuous. The inner pith feels slightly warmer now that it is exposed, less cool than the washed surface, and it has a faint, fresh scent that rises quietly into the air. The peeled strip grows longer, draping over the fingers, light and flexible. It is set aside carefully, not discarded thoughtlessly, placed where it can dry or be used later, its own role complete. The stalk, now partly peeled, looks subtly changed, slimmer, lighter in color, its inner structure revealed. The fingers pause for a moment, feeling the transition between peeled and unpeeled sections, noting the difference in texture, then resume their steady motion. Working down the length of the stalk, the hands repeat the same slow action, lifting the outer layer, guiding it away, maintaining a calm rhythm. There is no need to hurry. If the peel resists slightly, the fingers ease back, adjust angle, and continue. The plant responds predictably, separating cleanly when treated with patience. The peeled surface beneath feels smooth but faintly fibrous, with a softness that contrasts gently with the firmer outer skin. Occasionally, a drop of water emerges from the fibers, sliding along the newly exposed surface before falling away. The sound of the drop landing is quiet and brief. The air around the workspace remains still, allowing these small sounds to exist without interruption. Light falls across the stalk at a shallow angle, highlighting the subtle ridges and natural grain of the pith. The visual detail is soothing, repetitive, consistent from stalk to stalk. When the first stalk is fully peeled, it is set aside with others that have already undergone the same transformation. The peeled stalks rest together, paler and more uniform than before, their surfaces no longer glossy but softly matte. They lie parallel, aligned with quiet care. The unpeeled stalks remain nearby, slightly darker, waiting their turn without urgency. The hands move naturally to the next stalk, lifting it, feeling its weight, finding the starting point for the peel. The repetition is comforting. Each stalk is similar enough to feel familiar, yet slightly different in thickness or firmness, requiring subtle adjustments that keep the mind gently engaged. The outer layer separates again, curling away, forming another ribbon that joins the growing collection of peels. As more stalks are peeled, the workspace begins to show gentle signs of progress. The pile of peeled outer layers grows slowly, thin strips layered loosely together, their green color softening as they begin to dry. The peeled stalks form an orderly group, their pale interiors exposed, ready for slicing later. The hands remain relaxed, fingers moving with confidence born from repetition. The thumbs apply just enough pressure to guide the peel, while the fingers support the stalk's length. The sensation is consistent, a steady glide punctuated by small pauses to adjust grip or angle. Breathing remains slow and even, matching the pace of the work. The body feels settled, grounded by the repetitive motion and the tactile feedback of plant fibers under the skin. The sounds remain minimal and soothing. There is the faint fibrous whisper of peeling, the soft contact of stalks being placed down, the quiet movement of hands brushing against plant surfaces. In the distance, the day continues to wake, but its sounds remain subdued. A faint breeze may pass through the workspace, stirring the light peels slightly, causing them to shift and make a barely audible rustle. The air carries the fresh scent of papyrus more strongly now, layered with the dry warmth of the morning. The sun has climbed higher, and its light is brighter, but it still feels gentle, filtered by open space and low structures. It warms the hands gradually, making the contrast with the cooler, damp stalks pleasant and noticeable. Each new stalk follows the same calm pattern. The fingers locate the edge. The outer layer lifts. The peel separates slowly, guided downward. The inner pith is revealed, pale and smooth. The peel is set aside. The stalk is placed with its companions. There is no deviation, no need for variation. The comfort comes from this predictability, from knowing exactly what will happen with each motion. If a peel breaks partway, the fingers simply find the new edge and continue, unbothered, maintaining the same pace. The plant fibers cooperate easily, responding to gentle handling. The mind does not wander far. It stays with the sensations, the feel of texture, the sight of color change, the quiet sounds of work. Occasionally, the hands pause to rest, holding a stalk without peeling, simply feeling its weight and texture. The inner pith feels cooler in shaded areas, warmer where sunlight touches it. The fingers trace faint lines along its length, noticing subtle variations that will guide later steps. These pauses are brief and unremarkable, natural moments within the flow. Then the peeling resumes. Another outer layer separates. Another strip joins the pile. Another stalk transitions from one state to the next. The environment continues to support the calm pace. The air remains still, the light steady. The workspace feels enclosed by quiet rather than walls. The sounds of life beyond remain distant and muted, never intruding. The act of peeling feels timeless, as if it could be happening on any morning, in any year, unchanged by passing centuries. The tools are simple. The materials are natural. The movements are slow and deliberate. There is no pressure to improve or accelerate. The value lies in doing the task well, gently, attentively. As the number of unpeeled stalks dwindles, there is no sense of nearing an end, only a continuation of the same motion. The last few stalks receive the same careful attention as the first. Their outer layers peel away cleanly, their inner pith revealed with the same pale calmness. When the final stalk is placed with the others, the hands linger for a moment over the neatly arranged group. The peeled papyrus rests quietly, transformed but still simple, ready for the next stage. The pile of outer peels sits nearby, thin and light, a quiet record of the work just done. The hands brush together lightly, removing any lingering plant fibers, and the sensation is soft and dry. The papyrus scent remains on the skin, fresh and grounding. The air feels warmer now, the sun more present, but still kind. The workspace holds its calm, the rhythm unbroken. The peeling is complete, not with any announcement, but with a gentle settling. The papyrus lies exposed and pale, the outer skin set aside, and the quiet craft moves forward one small, unhurried step at a time, leaving behind only the memory of smooth textures, soft sounds, and steady hands working patiently in the growing light. The peeled papyrus stalks rest quietly now, their pale interiors exposed and aligned in calm order, waiting without impatience. The light has settled into a steady brightness, no longer tentative like dawn, but still gentle, still forgiving. It falls across the workspace and touches the papyrus with a soft clarity, revealing the faint grain that runs lengthwise through each stalk, subtle lines that seem to guide the next step naturally. Nearby, a simple cutting surface lies ready, smooth from use, its texture familiar and reassuring. A small blade rests within reach, its edge clean and unadorned, catching a thin line of light along its length. Hands move toward the papyrus without urgency, selecting one stalk at a time, lifting it with care, feeling its balance, its slight flexibility now that the outer layer has been removed. The stalk is placed flat against the cutting surface, aligned carefully so it lies straight, supported along its length. Fingers press gently to hold it in place, feeling the faint coolness still held within the plant fibers, a reminder of the river and the washing that came before. The blade is lifted and positioned at one end of the stalk, not to cut across it, but to begin a long, deliberate slicing motion along its length. The angle is shallow, almost parallel to the surface, allowing the blade to glide rather than chop. There is a brief pause as the hands find the correct position, ensuring balance and control. Then the blade moves forward slowly, meeting the papyrus with a soft, fibrous resistance that yields steadily. The sound is quiet and restrained, a gentle scrape rather than a sharp cut, and it blends easily into the surrounding stillness. As the blade advances, a thin strip of papyrus begins to separate, lifting slightly from the body of the stalk. The strip is pale and flexible, its edges clean, and it curls softly away from the blade as it is freed. Fingers guide it gently, preventing it from tearing, allowing it to peel back in a smooth, continuous ribbon. The motion is slow and measured, guided more by feel than by sight. The hands sense the grain of the papyrus, adjusting pressure minutely to follow it. If the blade meets a slightly denser section, the pace slows even more, pressure easing until the fibers part willingly. The strip grows longer, sliding away from the stalk and resting lightly on the cutting surface or draping over the fingers. Its texture is smooth but faintly fibrous, cool at first touch, then warming slightly as it is handled. The exposed surface beneath appears even paler, almost ivory in tone, matte and softly textured. The light catches it gently, revealing subtle variations that make each strip unique while still consistent with the others. When the first strip is fully separated, it is lifted and placed aside with care, laid flat among other strips that have already been cut, all aligned in quiet order. The hands return to the stalk, rotating it slightly to prepare for the next slice. The process repeats with the same unhurried attention. The blade is set at the edge, the angle adjusted, the motion begun. Slice by slice, the stalk is transformed into long, even strips, each one similar in width and thickness, each one requiring the same patience. The repetition settles into a soothing rhythm. Lift blade, set angle, glide forward, guide the strip, place it aside. There is no rush to complete the stalk. Each slice is allowed to take as long as it needs. The sound remains soft and consistent, a gentle accompaniment that never demands attention. The air holds the faint scent of fresh papyrus, now more pronounced as more inner fibers are exposed, a clean, vegetal fragrance that feels grounding and calm. As more strips accumulate, they form a growing arrangement on the surface nearby. They are laid carefully, parallel to one another, edges touching lightly, creating a visual pattern of pale lines that feels orderly and soothing. The strips are still slightly damp, and their surfaces catch the light differently depending on angle, some appearing brighter, others more muted. Tiny droplets sometimes appear along their edges, sliding slowly before disappearing into the surface beneath. The hands occasionally pause to smooth a strip, ensuring it lies flat, aligning it gently with the others. These small adjustments are slow and deliberate, part of the same rhythm as the cutting itself. The stalk being sliced gradually grows thinner as more material is removed, its shape changing subtly, becoming lighter and more flexible. The workspace remains quiet and supportive. The sounds of the day beyond are distant and subdued, softened by the walls of calm created by focused work. A faint breeze may pass through, stirring the edges of the cut strips just enough to create a barely audible whisper, then settling again. The light continues to shift almost imperceptibly, brightening the pale papyrus without glare. The hands feel steady and relaxed, fingers moving with practiced ease. There is no strain in the wrists or arms, only the gentle warmth of repeated motion. Breathing remains slow and even, each breath rising and falling in harmony with the glide of the blade. When one stalk has been fully sliced, the remaining core is set aside, its role complete. The hands move naturally to the next peeled stalk, lifting it, feeling its familiar weight, placing it carefully on the cutting surface. The process begins again without ceremony. The blade meets the papyrus. The first strip separates. The same calm attention is given to each movement. Though the action is repetitive, it never feels dull. Instead, it feels steady, predictable, reassuring. The mind rests lightly on the motion, not wandering far, content to remain present with the tactile sensations and quiet sounds. The strips themselves begin to feel familiar in the hands. Their texture is consistent, smooth but alive, with faint fibers that catch slightly against the skin. They are flexible but not fragile, bending gently when lifted, then settling back into straightness when laid flat. The edges are clean, showing the care taken in slicing. Occasionally, a strip is lifted and turned slightly, examined briefly to ensure evenness, then placed back with the others. These moments of inspection are calm and unhurried, part of the same gentle flow. Nothing needs to be corrected in haste. Any minor irregularity is simply noted and accepted, the natural result of working with living material. As time passes, the number of sliced strips grows steadily. The pile of uncut stalks diminishes at the same slow pace. There is no sense of rushing toward completion. The value lies in the process itself, in the steady transformation of form through careful, repeated action. The blade continues its quiet work, guided by hands that have settled fully into the rhythm. The sound of slicing remains soft and even, never sharp, never sudden. It becomes part of the background, like the distant river or the whisper of reeds earlier in the day. The body remains comfortable, posture adjusted subtly over time to maintain ease. The hands switch roles occasionally, giving each side a chance to guide the blade or support the material. These changes happen naturally, without thought, maintaining balance and comfort. The papyrus scent lingers in the air and on the skin, a gentle reminder of the material's origin. The light reflects off the blade briefly with each movement, a thin flash that appears and disappears, never lingering long enough to distract. The cutting surface bears faint marks from previous work, shallow lines that tell of countless similar motions over time, all calm, all patient. As more stalks are sliced, the strips begin to form small stacks, each one aligned with care. The edges create subtle patterns where they meet, a quiet geometry of parallel lines. The visual order is soothing, offering a sense of progress that does not rely on speed or urgency. The hands occasionally brush away tiny fibers that collect near the cutting surface, their movement gentle and unhurried. These fibers drift down and settle without fuss. The workspace remains clean and simple, each object in its place, each material handled with respect. The slicing continues, stalk after stalk, strip after strip. The repetition deepens the sense of calm. Time becomes less noticeable, measured only by the gradual change in the materials before and after. The uncut becomes cut. The solid becomes layered. The whole becomes many even parts. The transformation is quiet and complete, guided by steady hands and patient attention. The blade remains sharp and cooperative, gliding smoothly when treated gently. There is no need for force. The papyrus yields naturally to the motion. When the final peeled stalk is placed on the cutting surface, it receives the same calm care as the first. The blade begins its slow journey along the length, and the last set of strips is freed, one by one, with the same soft sounds and steady rhythm. When the final strip is placed with the others, the hands pause briefly, resting lightly on the cutting surface. The sliced papyrus lies neatly arranged nearby, pale and orderly, ready for the next stage. The remaining cores are set aside, their purpose fulfilled. The workspace feels settled, quiet, complete in this moment. The sliced strips of papyrus rest in pale, tidy stacks, each one long and flexible, their surfaces matte and faintly fibrous, holding a gentle coolness from the moisture still within them. They lie quietly near the work surface, waiting without impatience, as if they already understand the slow order of the craft. Nearby, a flat board or smooth table is cleared and made ready, its surface simple and familiar, worn by use and touched by many careful hands over time. The light above has settled into a steady brightness, soft enough to be comforting, clear enough to reveal small details. It falls across the board and shows faint marks in the wood or stone, shallow lines and smoothed edges that have been shaped gradually through repetition. The air is still and warm, carrying the fresh green scent of papyrus, now softened by time and handling into something calm and earthy. There is no rush to begin. Hands hover over the board for a moment, palms relaxed, fingers slightly curved, as if pausing to match the pace of the day before the next slow series of movements begins. A single strip is lifted from the nearest stack. It separates from the others with a soft, almost whispering sound, the faintest friction of fiber against fiber. The strip is held lightly, supported along its length so it does not bend too sharply. Its texture is smooth but alive, with subtle grain that can be felt if a fingertip moves along it. The strip is placed down onto the board, oriented horizontally, and the placement is careful and unhurried. The end is aligned with the board's edge or with an imagined line that guides the layout. Fingers press gently, smoothing the strip so it lies flat, coaxing out any slight curl from being stacked. The strip responds easily, settling into place, its dampness making it slightly more willing to adhere to the surface below. When the fingers lift away, the strip remains still, lying quietly, pale against the board. Another strip is chosen and placed beside the first. The movement repeats: lift, support, lower, align, smooth. The second strip is set close enough that its edge touches the first, but not overlapping, forming a neat seam where they meet. The seam is subtle, almost invisible at first glance, but the fingers can feel it, a faint ridge where one edge ends and the next begins. Smoothing motions pass over that seam, gentle and consistent, encouraging the edges to sit flush against one another. The strips are similar in width, but small natural variations appear, and these are handled with quiet patience. A strip might be nudged slightly, shifted by a fingertip, coaxed into better alignment. The sound of this work is minimal, mostly the soft brushing of fingers over damp fiber and the faint rustle of strips being moved. It is a sound that repeats gently, creating a calm pattern that blends into the warm quiet of the day. As more strips are added, the first layer begins to form, a growing field of pale papyrus laid side by side. Each strip runs in the same direction, their grain aligned, their surfaces catching light in similar ways. The light reveals slight differences in tone, some strips a little brighter, others a little more creamy, depending on thickness and how they were cut. These variations do not disrupt the uniformity. Instead, they add a gentle texture to the overall sheet, like subtle ripples in sand. The hands continue their slow work, moving steadily along the board, placing one strip after another. Each time a strip is laid down, fingers smooth it from end to end, pressing lightly to help it settle, to guide it into stillness. The motion becomes rhythmic and soothing. Place, align, smooth. Place, align, smooth. The body remains relaxed, posture comfortable, breathing slow and steady, matching the repetitive calm of the task. The edges of the growing layer are kept as straight as possible, but perfection is not forced. The craft is patient, allowing small adjustments when needed. A strip that lies slightly crooked is lifted gently and repositioned. The damp fibers cling lightly to the board, so lifting requires a careful touch, easing the strip upward without tearing, then lowering it again with a slow, controlled motion. The strip settles once more, and smoothing follows, encouraging it to lie flat. Occasionally, the hands pause to inspect the alignment, eyes moving calmly along the row of strips, checking for gaps or overlaps. When a small gap appears, a strip is nudged closer. When an edge overlaps slightly, it is eased back. These corrections are quiet and unhurried, part of the natural flow. The board slowly fills with the first layer. The papyrus strips create a soft visual pattern, long parallel lines that run across the surface. The repetition of these lines is soothing to look at, guiding the eyes gently without demanding focus. The faint smell of papyrus grows slightly stronger as more surface area is exposed, blending with the warm air and settling softly into the senses. The hands continue to lift strips from the stack, and each lift produces that soft whispering sound as fibers separate. The strips feel cool and pliable in the hands, their dampness making them smooth to handle. When placed on the board, their edges touch and settle, forming a continuous sheet that feels increasingly cohesive with each addition. As the layer reaches the desired width, the hands move more slowly, focusing on the final strips needed to complete the row. The last strip is chosen with care, its width checked visually against the remaining space. It is placed down gently, and its edge is aligned so it fits neatly into the gap. Smoothing motions follow, pressing lightly along its length, ensuring it lies flat and close to its neighbors. The first layer now covers the board in a calm, pale expanse, made from many individual strips that have become, through careful arrangement, a single unified surface. The edges are still visible upon close inspection, but they are subtle, quiet, almost like the seams in woven cloth. There is a pause, not because the work is finished, but because pausing is part of the slow rhythm. The hands rest lightly at the edge of the board. The eyes take in the first layer, noting its evenness, the consistent direction of the grain, the way the light settles across it. The surface looks soft and calm, slightly damp, and the strips cling gently to one another where their edges meet. The air is still, and in the quiet, the faint sounds of the environment feel more noticeable. A distant murmur of life, a soft breeze passing outside, the subtle creak of wood settling in warmth. These sounds remain far away, never intruding. The focus stays on the papyrus, on the slow craft unfolding step by step. The hands begin to smooth the entire first layer again, not just individual strips, but the surface as a whole. Palms move lightly across the papyrus, following the direction of the strips, pressing gently to encourage uniform contact. The damp fibers respond, settling more fully, edges becoming less pronounced. The motion is slow and repetitive, like stroking a calm surface of water. The skin of the hands feels the faint texture of papyrus beneath, smooth with subtle fibers that catch slightly, then release. The sensation is comforting, grounding, and the repetitive movement encourages the mind to soften further, to relax into the predictable rhythm. When smoothing is complete, the first layer is left to rest briefly. The strips remain still, their dampness helping them adhere in place. The board holds them securely, providing a steady foundation for the next stage. The stacks of remaining strips sit nearby, waiting for the second layer that will cross over this one. But for now, attention stays with what has been created. A quiet, orderly arrangement of pale fibers laid side by side, forming the beginning of a sheet. The simplicity of it is reassuring. Nothing has been rushed. Every strip has been placed with care. The process has been slow enough to notice each texture, each sound, each small adjustment. The warmth of the day continues to grow gradually, but the workspace remains calm and shaded enough to keep the papyrus cool and workable. Light continues to fall softly across the first layer, highlighting its gentle variations. The edges of strips appear as faint lines, almost like the grain of wood, and the entire surface feels cohesive, ready. The hands remain nearby, relaxed, prepared to continue, but in this moment there is no need to hurry forward. The first layer has been laid. It rests quietly, a calm foundation built from patient repetition, and the craft moves forward in its own steady time. One strip placed, one seam smoothed, one gentle breath after another. The first layer of papyrus rests quietly on the board, its long pale strips lying side by side in calm alignment, slightly damp and gently settled, forming a smooth and patient foundation. The surface holds a quiet stillness, as if it has taken a slow breath and chosen not to release it yet. Light glides across it without effort, revealing faint seams where one strip meets the next, lines so subtle they feel more like suggestions than divisions. The air around the workspace is warm now, no longer cool with morning, but still gentle, carrying the softened scent of plant fibers and sun-warmed earth. Hands return to the stacks of remaining papyrus strips, moving without urgency, fingers relaxed, ready to begin the next stage. This layer will cross the first, not hurriedly, not dramatically, but with the same steady patience that has guided every step so far. The craft continues in silence, guided by touch, repetition, and time. A single strip is lifted from the stack, and this time it is held with a slightly different awareness. The strip will not be placed in the same direction as before. Instead, it will lie across the first layer, forming a quiet crossing that brings strength through simplicity. The strip feels familiar in the hands, cool and flexible, its fibers faintly textured beneath the fingertips. It bends gently when supported at both ends, then straightens again when tension is released. The strip is carried slowly over the board, hovering above the first layer for a moment as the hands find the right position. The direction is perpendicular now, running across the long horizontal lines below. The placement is deliberate and unhurried. One end is lowered first, touching the surface lightly, then the rest of the strip follows, settling gently across the width of the sheet. Fingers smooth it carefully, pressing just enough to encourage contact without forcing it down. As the strip meets the first layer, there is a faint change in sensation beneath the fingertips. The papyrus below offers a soft resistance, slightly springy from its dampness. The crossing fibers begin to interact, touching at countless tiny points, their textures meeting quietly. The strip lies flat, its edges resting evenly across the underlying seams. The light reveals the crossing pattern clearly now, horizontal lines beneath, vertical above, forming a subtle grid that feels orderly and calm. The fingers move along the strip's length, smoothing from one end to the other, guiding out any small curves, encouraging the fibers to settle together. The motion is slow and repetitive, soothing in its predictability. When the fingers lift away, the strip remains still, held in place by moisture and gentle pressure. Another strip is chosen and brought forward. The movement repeats with the same careful pace. Lift, support, hover, lower, smooth. This second strip is placed beside the first, parallel to it, with a small gap that is quickly closed by a gentle nudge. The edges touch lightly, forming a seam that mirrors those in the first layer but in a new direction. Fingers trace along that seam, pressing softly to help the edges sit flush. The sound of this work is barely audible, a soft brushing of fibers and skin, a faint whisper of movement that rises and falls gently. The air remains still, allowing these small sounds to exist without competition. Breathing stays slow, natural, almost unnoticed, matching the calm rhythm of placement and smoothing. As more strips are added, the second layer begins to take shape. Each new strip crosses the first layer cleanly, forming a growing pattern of perpendicular lines. The visual effect is subtle and pleasing, a quiet geometry that feels balanced and stable. The dampness of the papyrus helps the layers adhere gently to one another, and with each strip laid down, the surface becomes more unified. The hands move steadily across the board, working methodically from one side to the other, ensuring even coverage. Occasionally, a strip is lifted again to correct a slight misalignment, the fibers separating easily with a careful touch, then settling back into place when lowered again. There is no frustration in these adjustments, only calm acceptance. The material responds patiently, and the hands respond in kind. The light continues to shift almost imperceptibly, brightening the surface without glare. It highlights the crossing pattern, revealing faint shadows where strips overlap, adding depth without contrast. The papyrus scent grows slightly richer as more surface area is exposed, a clean, vegetal aroma that blends softly with the warm air. The board beneath remains steady and supportive, its texture occasionally felt through the layers when fingers press gently. The sensation is reassuring, grounding, a reminder of the solid foundation beneath the delicate work. The hands smooth each strip fully before moving on, palms and fingertips gliding along the fibers in slow, even strokes. The repetition deepens. Place a strip, align it carefully, smooth it from end to end, adjust the seam, move to the next. The mind settles fully into this rhythm, no longer anticipating what comes next, simply following the sequence as it unfolds. Time stretches comfortably. Minutes pass without being counted. The only marker of progress is the growing field of crossed strips, gradually covering the first layer completely. The edges of the sheet become more defined, though still soft, the corners gently squared by careful placement. The surface begins to feel cohesive, as if the individual strips are no longer separate, but parts of a single, calm whole. As the second layer nears completion, the hands slow even further, giving extra attention to the final strips. These last placements are made with particular care, ensuring the coverage is even and the edges align neatly with the underlying layer. A strip is measured visually against the remaining space, then lowered gently into position. Fingers smooth it down, pressing lightly where it meets its neighbors. The crossing pattern is now complete across the entire surface, a quiet lattice of pale fibers that feels strong without heaviness. The sheet looks calm and orderly, its structure visible but not pronounced, its simplicity reassuring. There is another pause, unspoken and natural. The hands rest lightly at the edge of the board. The eyes take in the completed layering, noticing how the second layer rests securely atop the first, how the crossing fibers create subtle texture and strength. The surface glistens faintly in places where moisture remains, catching the light softly. The air is still, and the quiet feels deeper now, enriched by the steady work that has just been done. In this moment, nothing needs to change. The layers are complete. They rest together, held by moisture, pressure, and time. The hands return once more to the surface, not to add, but to smooth. Palms move slowly across the sheet, first in one direction, then the other, following both orientations of the strips. The motion is gentle and repetitive, encouraging full contact between layers. Fingers press lightly along seams, coaxing fibers into closer alignment. The papyrus responds, settling further, edges becoming less distinct. The sound of this smoothing is soft and rhythmic, like a slow brushing that rises and falls with each pass. The skin feels the texture beneath, the subtle resistance of overlapping fibers, the coolness where dampness remains. The sensation is deeply calming, anchoring attention fully in the present moment. As smoothing continues, the sheet begins to feel more unified, less like a collection of strips and more like a single surface. The crossing pattern remains visible, but it feels integrated, purposeful. The hands move with confidence now, guided by the familiar feel of the material. Each stroke is deliberate and slow, allowing the fibers time to respond. There is no rush to finish smoothing. The value lies in repetition, in patience, in allowing the layers to settle fully before moving on. The warmth of the day continues to grow, but the papyrus remains cool enough to work with comfortably. The light remains soft, steady, supportive. Eventually, the hands lift away, leaving the sheet to rest. The two layers lie together quietly, crossing fibers holding one another in gentle balance. The board supports them from below, and the air surrounds them with warmth and stillness. The sheet is not yet complete, but it has reached a significant point, its structure formed, its shape defined. The work pauses here, not as an ending, but as a natural resting place within the slow unfolding of the craft. The papyrus rests, the layers breathing together in silence, while time moves forward at its own unhurried pace, carrying the calm forward into whatever gentle step comes next. The layered papyrus rests on the board like a quiet woven field of pale fibers, the two directions crossing gently, held together by moisture and careful smoothing. The surface is calm and slightly cool, faintly damp to the touch, with seams that have softened into subtle lines. Light settles across it without glare, revealing a gentle grid that looks orderly and stable. The air around the workspace is warm and still, carrying the clean, vegetal scent of papyrus and the dry, comforting smell of earth warmed by the rising day. This is a moment where movement naturally slows even further, where the work shifts from active hands to patient waiting. The sheet is ready for pressing, ready to be held in steady quiet so the fibers can settle into one another more completely. Nothing here needs to happen quickly. The craft now becomes a matter of stillness, of weight, of time passing slowly enough to be felt. A smooth covering is placed over the papyrus first, something simple and flat that protects the surface while allowing pressure to spread evenly. It might be a thin cloth, a piece of woven material, or another smooth board, placed down gently so it meets the papyrus without shifting the careful alignment beneath. The covering touches the surface with a soft, muted contact, and the layered strips remain still, held in place by their dampness and by the steadiness of the board below. Hands move slowly as they position the covering, aligning edges so it lies flat and even. The motion is deliberate, unhurried, as if each small adjustment is part of a quiet ritual. Fingers press lightly along the edges, smoothing outward, making sure there are no folds or uneven spots. The sensation through the fingertips is subtle, the soft give of damp fibers beneath a flat layer, the quiet certainty that everything is in place. Then the weight is brought forward, steady and patient. A flat stone, smoothed by time and use, is lifted and held for a moment. Its surface is cool at first touch, solid and reliable. The stone has a reassuring heaviness, not harsh, simply firm. A piece of the earth that has been shaped by water and years. It is lowered slowly onto the covered papyrus, placed carefully so it sits evenly and does not tilt. The contact is gentle but definite. The weight settles, and the papyrus beneath accepts it, compressing just slightly, fibers drawing closer together. There is no sound beyond a faint, muted thud as the stone meets the surface, quickly absorbed by the still air. Another stone may follow, or another flat board with weight added on top, arranged so pressure spreads across the whole sheet. Each placement is slow and considered, each weight lowered with the same calm care. As the pressing begins, the workspace becomes even quieter, as if the act of adding weight invites silence. The papyrus no longer needs hands to guide it. It needs time. The fibers beneath the covering begin their slow, invisible work, releasing moisture gradually, bonding gently where they touch. The crossing layers settle into one another in countless tiny places, each contact point becoming slightly more intimate under pressure. Though this process cannot be seen directly, it can be sensed in the quiet stillness of the setup, in the way everything has come to rest. The weights sit firmly, unmoving. The board beneath holds steady. The air remains warm and still, and the light continues to shift slowly across the surface, tracking the sun's gentle movement through the day. Waiting does not feel empty here. It feels full of calm detail. The eyes might rest on the stones, noticing their textures, the faint patterns in their surfaces, tiny speckles and smooth worn edges. The stones hold the light differently from the papyrus, reflecting less, absorbing more, appearing matte and grounded. Their presence is reassuring, like a promise that the sheet beneath is being held safely. The ears catch small sounds that become noticeable only in quiet. A distant breeze moving outside, the faint rustle of leaves or reed tops far away, the soft creak of wood warming in sunlight. These sounds are gentle and intermittent, never sharp, never demanding. They drift in and out like slow breaths. Moisture continues to move within the papyrus under the pressure. Some of it may seep outward, darkening the covering slightly in places, creating faint patches that appear and spread slowly, then stop. These changes happen gradually, almost too slowly to notice unless one watches carefully over time. The warmth of the day encourages the moisture to shift, to travel out of the fibers and into the air. The scent of papyrus remains present, but it begins to soften, becoming less fresh and green and more mild and earthy as the plant fibers settle into their new form. The air feels comfortable against the skin, warm but not heavy, and breathing remains slow and easy, each inhale bringing a calm mixture of plant and sun-warmed earth. Time passes in a slow, unbroken line. The pressing continues without intervention. The weights remain where they are, steady and silent. The board holds firm. The papyrus beneath, though hidden, is undergoing a gentle transformation. The mind does not need to focus on anything complicated. It can rest in the simplicity of waiting, noticing small shifts in light, the way shadows move by degrees, the way the air changes slightly as the sun rises higher. If the workspace is partly shaded, the boundary between shade and sun may creep slowly across the ground, a soft line moving almost imperceptibly. This slow movement becomes its own kind of quiet motion, a reminder that time is passing even when hands are still. Occasionally, hands return briefly to check the weights, not to move them much, just to ensure they sit evenly, that nothing has shifted. Fingers touch the edge of a stone, feeling its cool firmness, then withdraw. The weights are left undisturbed. There is no need to lift them early. The sheet benefits from remaining under pressure. The waiting stretches on. The world outside continues its quiet rhythm. Somewhere beyond, life moves slowly, voices perhaps murmuring in the distance, but they remain far enough away to blend into the background. The workspace remains a pocket of stillness, defined by the weights and the covered sheet resting beneath. As the hours pass, the light becomes warmer. The sun climbs higher and the brightness deepens, though the workspace remains calm. Heat may cause the air to shimmer slightly above sunlit surfaces, a subtle wavering that makes the world look even softer at the edges. The stones warm slowly, their surfaces no longer cool but gently heated by sunlight. If a hand were to touch one, it would feel warm, not hot, like a stone that has been resting in the sun for a long time. The warmth spreads into the covering, encouraging the papyrus beneath to dry gradually. The scent becomes lighter, less distinct, as moisture leaves. The air feels drier now, though still comfortable, and the skin senses the gentle warmth. The act of waiting becomes almost meditative, the mind settling into the slow passage of time. The eyes may drift over small details, the grain of the board, the faint dust in the air catching sunlight, the gentle curve of a stone's edge. The ears may catch the soft rhythm of distant sounds. The body remains relaxed, posture easy, with no need to move. The pressing continues quietly, as if the sheet is being held in a long, steady embrace. The weights do not press suddenly or unevenly. They simply rest, constant and calm, offering the same gentle pressure moment after moment. At some point, the light begins to shift again, becoming less harsh as the day moves toward afternoon. Shadows lengthen slightly, and the warmth becomes softer. The air cools by degrees, almost unnoticeably. The pressing has continued through these changes, uninterrupted. The sheet beneath has likely released much of its moisture by now, becoming more stable, more bonded. The fibers have had time to settle fully. The natural adhesives within the plant have done their quiet work. The papyrus sheet is becoming what it needs to be, not through force, but through patience and time. When the moment feels right, the weights are lifted slowly, one at a time. Each stone is raised with care, hand steady, avoiding any sudden movement that could disturb the sheet beneath. The stone leaves the surface with a faint, soft release, and the covering beneath springs up only slightly, still calm. The stones are set aside gently, and their removal feels like a quiet unveiling. The covering remains in place for a moment longer, allowing the sheet beneath to adjust to the absence of weight without shock. Then the covering is lifted slowly, peeled back with careful hands. The air meets the papyrus surface again, and the sheet is revealed, lying flat and cohesive, its fibers pressed into closer union. The surface appears smoother now, more unified. The seams between strips are less pronounced, and the crossing pattern feels integrated, like a single fabric rather than layered pieces. The sheet may still feel slightly cool, but it is less damp than before, firmer to the touch. Fingers hover above it, then rest gently on the surface, feeling the change. The papyrus feels more solid, more continuous, its texture even and calm. The smell is mild now, less green, more neutral, like dried plant fibers warmed by sun. The sheet lies quietly on the board, pressed and settled, ready for the next stage of drying and refinement. For a moment, there is a quiet satisfaction in this reveal, not dramatic, not celebratory, simply calm. The pressing has done its slow work. Time has passed gently, and the papyrus has transformed beneath steady weight. The workspace remains still, the air warm and soft, the light beginning to shift toward the later hours. The sheet rests, pressed and unified, and the craft continues forward, carrying the same slow patience into whatever comes next. The rhythm unbroken, the calm intact. The pressed papyrus sheet is carried gently into the open warmth of the day, supported evenly so it does not bend or crease, its surface now cohesive and calm after the long patience of wait and time. The air outside feels broader and lighter, touched by the steady presence of the sun, which has climbed high enough to offer warmth without harshness. The ground beneath is dry and firm, and a quiet space has been chosen where light falls freely for many hours, uninterrupted, allowing the papyrus to finish its slow transformation. When the sheet is lowered, it meets the surface beneath with a soft, muted contact, settling flat and still. The fibers hold together comfortably now, no longer shifting under the lightest touch, and the surface shows a faint, natural texture, subtle crossings of pale lines that have softened into one unified field. Sunlight rests across the papyrus evenly, illuminating it without glare. The light is warm and golden, filtering through the air and softening every edge it touches. The sheet absorbs this light gently, its pale surface reflecting just enough brightness to appear alive without becoming sharp. Shadows nearby are slow and elongated, barely moving at first, and the warmth spreads gradually through the fibers. The papyrus still holds traces of moisture from pressing, and this moisture begins to lift quietly into the air, invisible but felt in the subtle change of scent. The fresh green aroma fades little by little, replaced by something drier and calmer, the smell of plant fibers settling into permanence. The surrounding air is still, but not stagnant. A faint breeze passes occasionally, brushing lightly across the surface of the papyrus, cooling it for a moment before moving on. The breeze carries the quiet sounds of the day, distant movement, soft voices far away, the faint rustle of leaves or reeds responding to the same passing air. These sounds remain gentle and distant, never intruding, blending naturally into the steady calm of drying. The papyrus lies quietly, exposed to warmth and light, doing nothing and yet changing slowly with each passing minute. Time moves differently here. There is no need to watch it closely. The drying happens gradually, so subtly that it can only be noticed by comparison. The surface that once felt faintly cool and damp begins to feel warmer and drier under the sun's steady presence. If a hand were to hover above it, the warmth would be felt rising softly from the sheet, not hot, but comfortable, like stone that has rested in sunlight for a long while. The fibers within respond patiently, releasing moisture evenly, preventing warping or tension. The sheet remains flat, held in balance by the care taken in every step before. As the hours pass, the light shifts slowly across the surface. What was once evenly lit begins to hold gentle gradients, areas of brightness and softer shadow drifting almost imperceptibly as the sun moves. These changes are slow enough to be soothing, encouraging stillness rather than attention. The papyrus does not react dramatically. It simply remains where it is, allowing warmth and air to do their quiet work. The edges curl only slightly, if at all, and if they do so gently, in a way that feels natural rather than forced. The texture of the papyrus becomes more defined as drying continues. The surface feels firmer now, less yielding to pressure, though still smooth. The crossing fibers beneath are more fully bonded, their seams less visible, their presence felt only as a subtle pattern beneath the fingertips. The sheet feels whole. The air around it grows drier as moisture leaves the fibers, and the scent becomes almost neutral, a faint reminder of plant origin without freshness or sharpness. The sun continues its slow arc, and the warmth remains steady, never overwhelming. Occasionally, the breeze returns, lifting the edges of nearby materials, stirring dust gently, but the papyrus remains undisturbed. Its weight and cohesion keep it steady. The breeze feels like a quiet companion, offering brief coolness and movement, then leaving again. The sounds it carries are always soft. Somewhere, life continues at its own pace, but here, the drying is the only focus, though it requires no effort or action. It is a process of allowing, of trusting the environment to complete what careful hands have begun. As midday passes and the afternoon begins to unfold, the sun's warmth softens slightly. The light becomes less direct, more angled, bathing the papyrus in a gentler glow. The surface now feels dry to the touch, no longer cool, but warm and even. The fibers have settled fully, and the sheet lies flat and stable. Its color is consistent across the surface, pale and calm, without dark patches of moisture. The subtle grid pattern remains visible, but only faintly, like a memory of the steps that formed it. The air cools by small degrees, almost unnoticeably. Shadows lengthen again, and the brightness softens. The papyrus remains where it is, unchanged now except in the most gradual ways. Drying has reached its natural conclusion. The sheet feels complete, no longer in transition. It rests quietly, warmed by the day, cooled gently by passing air, fully formed through patience rather than haste. When the light begins to shift toward late afternoon, the papyrus is lifted carefully and moved into a place of rest. The surface beneath is smooth and supportive, and the sheet is laid down gently, its edges aligned, its body relaxed and stable. The sensation of lifting reveals its new character. It feels lighter now, less burdened by moisture, more responsive and firm. The hands feel the difference immediately, and the motion of setting it down is calm and precise. The workspace returns to quiet stillness. The sun lowers, the warmth fades into a softer presence, and the air carries the peaceful feeling of a day moving toward rest. The papyrus lies finished, dried by sun and time, transformed fully from river plant to writing surface. The craft has unfolded slowly, step by step, without urgency or strain. The sheet now holds the quiet memory of every motion that shaped it. Gathering, washing, peeling, slicing, layering, pressing, and drying, all carried out with steady hands and patient attention. As evening approaches, the light becomes golden and low, and the papyrus rests in that gentle glow, complete and calm. The day's warmth lingers faintly in the fibers, releasing slowly into the cooling air. The world around settles into softer sounds, slower movement. The work is done, not in a way that demands recognition, but in a way that feels settled and natural. The papyrus has reached its final form through the simplest elements: water, plant, pressure, sun, and time, guided quietly by human care. The calm remains unbroken as the day continues to ease toward rest, and the sheet lies quietly, ready to carry words in another moment, long after this gentle afternoon has passed. Hands move toward the sheet with the same quiet patience that has guided every stage. The palms are relaxed, the fingers warm from the day's air. When a hand rests lightly on the papyrus, the surface feels dry and slightly textured, not rough, but subtly fibrous, like fine cloth made from plant threads. The sheet holds warmth gently, and the touch is comforting, neither cold nor hot. The edges are straight enough to feel tidy, and the corners are calm, without sharpness. The sheet is turned slightly, aligned so the smoothing can follow the grain, and the first gentle passes begin. A smooth stone may be used, one with a rounded edge worn by time, or a piece of polished wood, or even a shell, something simple that can press and glide without tearing. Whatever tool is chosen, it is held with an easy grip, its surface familiar and reassuring in the hand. It carries a small weight, enough to provide gentle pressure, and it feels cool at first, then slowly warms as it is held. The tool touches the papyrus near one corner, and the first stroke begins. It is slow, steady, and even, moving along the surface in a deliberate line. The sound is barely audible, a soft, dry whisper as the smooth tool passes over the fibers. It is not scraping. It is polishing, pressing down the tiny raised strands, encouraging them to lie flat. The pressure is light and consistent, and the movement is repeated again and again, each stroke following a similar path. The tool glides forward, then returns, forward, then returns, never rushed, never abrupt. The papyrus responds quietly. Its surface changes in a subtle way, becoming slightly smoother where the tool has passed, catching the light differently, reflecting a faint sheen that was not there before. The difference is gentle and gradual, like the slow smoothing of sand by water. The hands shift position slightly as the strokes continue. The tool moves across the sheet in overlapping paths, ensuring no area is neglected. Each section of papyrus receives the same calm attention. The strokes are long and unbroken when possible, but sometimes they are shorter, focusing on a small area where a seam feels slightly raised or where fibers stand up a little. These small imperfections are not treated as problems. They are simply part of the natural material, and smoothing them is a quiet act of care. The tool passes over them again and again, pressing gently, and gradually they soften, becoming less noticeable beneath the fingertips. The sensation of the tool moving is soothing, the weight in the hand steady, the motion repetitive. The body settles into the rhythm, shoulders relaxed, breathing slow and easy. As the surface smooths, the papyrus begins to feel more uniform. Running fingertips lightly over a finished area reveals a calmer texture, smoother and more consistent, with fewer tiny catches. The sound of the tool changes slightly too, becoming even softer as the fibers lie flatter, the whisper turning into something almost silent. The light, now angled from the late afternoon sun, helps show progress. Areas that have been smoothed reflect a faint, warm sheen, while unsmoothed areas remain more matte. This difference is subtle, never stark, but visible enough to guide the hands. The tool continues its slow journey across the sheet, section by section, stroke by stroke. The air around the workspace feels quieter now, not because the world has stopped, but because the day itself is winding down. Distant sounds are softened by the warm light. A faint breeze might pass, carrying the smell of dry earth, perhaps a hint of cooking fires beginning somewhere far away, smoke thin and gentle in the air. These scents blend with the mild, dry smell of papyrus, which is now almost neutral, like sun-dried grass. The tool warms in the hand, becoming the same temperature as skin, and its weight feels more familiar with each repetition. The papyrus lies still and cooperative, not shifting, not resisting. It simply receives the smoothing, allowing itself to become more refined through patience. The strokes continue steadily. The tool moves in one direction, then sometimes in another, crossing paths gently to ensure the fibers are pressed evenly. Some strokes follow the long grain. Others pass across it, lightly, to catch any fibers that stand in a different direction. The hands remain careful, applying pressure that is firm enough to smooth but never harsh enough to damage. The papyrus holds together confidently, its fibers bonded and stable after drying. The sheet feels strong in a quiet way, strong enough to accept this final refinement without fear. Each time the tool reaches the edge of the sheet, it lifts slightly, then returns to begin a new pass. The lifting is gentle, the placement soft, and the rhythm is consistent, almost like slow breathing. Now and then, the papyrus is turned slightly, rotated so the smoothing can approach from a different angle. This movement is slow, careful, ensuring the sheet does not crease. The papyrus lifts lightly, then settles again with a soft, papery sound that is quiet and comforting. When the tool resumes, it glides across newly positioned fibers, pressing them down in the same calm way. The sheet becomes smoother overall, and the tactile difference grows more noticeable. Areas once slightly fibrous now feel almost silky under fingertips, not shiny, but pleasantly even. The faint crossing pattern beneath becomes less tactile, more integrated, and the sheet begins to feel like a true writing surface, ready for ink, ready for careful marks. The smoothing process is unhurried, and it does not need to end quickly. It can take as long as it takes, and the hands allow it. The work itself is calming, repetitive, predictable. The sound of the tool's whisper, the feel of its weight, the sight of the faint sheen growing across the sheet, all of it encourages the mind to remain quiet. There is no tension in the body. The hands move with steady ease, guided by habit and touch. The day outside continues its gentle shift toward evening. The light grows warmer, then gradually dimmer, and shadows lengthen across the ground. As the last areas of the papyrus are smoothed, the tool's path becomes slower and more deliberate, as if savoring the final strokes. The hands pass over the sheet one more time, not searching for perfection, but ensuring evenness. Fingers glide lightly across the surface, feeling for any remaining roughness. If a small area catches, the tool returns there for a few more gentle passes, pressing and smoothing until the fibers settle. The sheet now feels calm and uniform, its surface ready. The tool is lifted and set aside softly, its work complete. The papyrus rests in the late afternoon light, smoother now, more refined. The surface catches the warm glow gently, and the faint sheen makes it look quietly finished. The air is cooler than before, though still comfortable. The scent of the day is shifting toward evening, smoke and dry earth and cooling air blending softly. The hands rest near the papyrus, fingers relaxed, as if reluctant to disturb the calm that has settled around the finished sheet. The craft has reached a point of completion that feels quiet and satisfying. Not a dramatic ending, but a gentle settling, the way a room feels when everything has been put away neatly. The papyrus is lifted carefully once more, held at its edges to avoid smudging the newly smoothed surface. It feels light and firm, flexible without bending too easily. It is placed in a safe, clean spot where it can remain flat, perhaps under a light covering, protected from dust as evening comes. The movement is slow and careful, like placing something precious without needing to announce it. The sheet settles into stillness, smooth and ready, and the hands withdraw, leaving it to rest. As the light continues to fade, the workspace becomes quieter still. The smoothing is done. The papyrus has been refined. The day is easing toward its end, and the body feels the gentle satisfaction of slow work completed. The mind can rest in the simplicity of what has been made, a sheet born from river plants and patient hands, shaped through washing, peeling, slicing, layering, pressing, drying, and smoothing, each stage calm, each stage unhurried. The papyrus lies quietly now, prepared for writing, but for now it simply rests, holding the last warmth of the sun, waiting without urgency as evening approaches and the world grows softer. Evening arrives in the simplest way, without ceremony, as if the day merely exhales and becomes quieter. The light that once filled every corner of the workspace now sits lower, warmer, and softer, spreading in long, gentle bands across the ground and along the edges of walls and tools. The air cools by degrees so small they hardly feel like change at first, and yet the skin notices the difference, a calm easing of heat, a subtle invitation to slow down. The papyrus sheet rests where it has been placed, protected and flat, its surface smooth and quietly finished, holding a faint warmth within its fibers, like the last memory of the sun. Nothing needs to be done to it now. It does not need more smoothing, more pressing, more attention. It simply rests, complete and patient, and the stillness around it feels like a continuation of its own calm. The tools used throughout the day sit nearby, simple and quiet, their work finished as well. The blade that once sliced through pale pith rests clean and still. The basin used for washing no longer holds water. The stones that once pressed the sheet are set aside, their surfaces warm from the afternoon sun and slowly cooling now as the light fades. There is a comforting order in the way everything returns to rest, each object placed where it belongs, each motion from earlier now finished. Hands move slowly through the space, not with urgency, but with the gentle tidying that comes naturally at the end of a day. A strip of outer peel is gathered and laid in a neat pile. A board is brushed lightly to remove fine fibers and dust. The movements are small and repetitive, soothing in the way they bring closure without any need for hurry. Outside, the world changes its sounds as evening settles. The brighter calls of daytime birds fade and become less frequent. In their place come softer, lower tones, the quiet murmurs of insects beginning their slow rhythm. A faint chirp appears, then another, separated by long stretches of silence, as if even the insects are careful not to disturb the calm. Far away, the river continues its steady hush, the same sound it made at dawn, unchanged by the passing hours. It remains a gentle presence, a continuous thread running through the day, carrying the sense of time moving steadily without force. The air carries the river's scent more softly now, mixed with the dry smell of cooling earth and the faint sweetness of plants settling into night. The sky itself becomes a slow gradient of color. The bright blue of midday is gone, replaced by pale gold near the horizon and deeper tones above. The sun lowers until it is no longer seen, leaving behind a lingering glow that makes the edges of the world feel soft and blurred. Shadows stretch longer, then begin to dissolve into the growing dimness. The light that remains is gentle enough to relax the eyes. It touches the papyrus sheet only indirectly now, a faint warmth and a soft glow, and the sheet seems to become part of the evening, quiet and unassuming. Its pale surface looks calm in the fading light, and its smoothness suggests ease, readiness, rest. As the air cools, the sensation of temperature becomes more comforting. The warmth that lingered in stone and would releases slowly, like a slow breath. Touching a stone now would feel mildly warm, not hot, as if it has stored the day's sunlight and is letting it go gradually. The ground beneath, packed earth or sand, feels cooler, and the contrast between warm and cool is gentle, never sharp. The breeze, if it comes, is softer now, carrying a hint of night, and it brushes the skin like a light cloth. It moves through nearby plants and reeds with a quiet whisper, similar to the sound heard earlier in the morning by the riverbank, bringing the day full circle in a calm, continuous loop. In the distance, simple evening life begins, not loud, not hurried. A quiet voice might drift through the air, a low murmur of conversation that rises briefly and then fades. A cooking fire might crackle softly somewhere, not sharply, but with a gentle, steady sound that blends into the larger quiet. The scent of smoke may appear, thin and faint, carried lightly on the breeze, adding warmth to the air's layered smells. It mixes with the mild scent of papyrus fibers, now fully dried and refined, and the combination feels grounding and safe. The world feels smaller and calmer under evening light, as if everything is settling into itself. The body begins to respond to this shift without needing to think about it. Shoulders relax slightly more. Breathing slows even further. The hands that worked through washing, peeling, slicing, layering, pressing, drying, and smoothing now feel pleasantly tired, not strained, but gently used, carrying the quiet warmth of steady effort. The muscles in the arms and back feel loose, softened by the day's repetitive motions. There is comfort in this kind of tiredness, the kind that comes from calm work done steadily, without stress. The mind, too, feels quieter, less occupied, naturally drawn towards stillness as the day fades. The papyrus sheet remains in its resting place, and there is a quiet satisfaction in knowing it is complete. It began as tall stalks by the river, cool and green in the early morning light, and it has moved through each slow stage to become something new, something useful, something calm. Yet even now, finished and ready, it does not demand attention. It simply exists, a quiet surface that could hold words later, but for now holds only silence and the memory of sun. The sheet's edges lie flat, its surface smooth, its fibers bonded and settled. It feels almost like a small piece of the river's patience has been carried into it, transformed into a surface that can outlast the day. As twilight deepens, the sky dims further, and the first stars begin to appear, faint points of light that do not compete with the darkness, only decorate it gently. The air becomes cooler, and the sounds become softer, more spaced apart. Insects hum lightly, then pause. A distant bird settles somewhere unseen. The river continues its quiet hush, steady and consistent, like a lullaby that never ends. The world feels safe in its simplicity. Nothing is required now except rest. The workspace becomes less defined as light fades, its edges blending into shadow. The tools are already put away or resting where they belong. The papyrus sheet is safe. The day's tasks are complete. There is no need to plan ahead in this moment. The craft has been done slowly and patiently, and the result is ready. The sense of completion is not exciting, but soothing, like a room made orderly, like a bed made smooth. It offers the mind a place to settle, to release attention, to drift. Breathing becomes the most noticeable rhythm now, quiet and steady, matching the calm outside. Inhaling brings in cool night air with faint traces of smoke and river and dry earth. Exhaling releases warmth into the cooling evening. The repetition is gentle and automatic. Each breath is like a small wave, arriving and receding, similar to the river's motion against the shore at dawn. The mind can follow this rhythm easily, without effort, and as it does, the world's details soften further. The sounds grow quieter still. The distant crackle of fire fades. Voices become whispers, then silence. The insects settle into a steadier hum that feels like a soft blanket of sound, not loud enough to demand attention, just present enough to feel comforting. The breeze, if it moves, does so gently, brushing through reeds and plants with a quiet rustle, then becoming still again. The air feels cool against the skin now, but not cold. It is the kind of cool that invites warmth, invites rest, invites stillness. The papyrus sheet remains unmoving, resting as if asleep already, holding the last warmth of the day in its fibers. It will be used later, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps another day, to carry writing, to hold records, to preserve quiet marks made by careful hands. But tonight, it rests, and the world rests with it. The river continues its slow hush. The sky continues to darken. The stars continue to appear, one by one, without hurry. As the last light disappears, the darkness feels soft rather than heavy. It wraps the landscape gently, smoothing edges, quieting details. The mind does not need to hold onto the day's images anymore. The memory of papyrus stalks, of cool water, of pale strips laid side by side, of weight pressing quietly, of sun drying slowly, of smoothing strokes that whispered across the surface. All of it can drift into the background like a dream that fades upon waking, except now it fades into sleep. The body feels settled. The breath remains steady. The world remains calm. And so, In the quiet of evening by the Nile, with the day's work complete and the air cool and gentle, it becomes easy to let the senses soften. The sounds are distant and low. The light is gone, replaced by the quiet presence of night. The papyrus rests, the river rests, the land rests, and the mind can rest too, releasing thought little by little, allowing the calm to deepen, allowing the slow craft of the day to become a soft memory, and allowing sleep to arrive as quietly as evening did, gradual and gentle, until there is nothing left to do but drift.